The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forests that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight is Eric Marcum's birthday, and on our panel tonight we have the birthday boy himself, Eric Marcum, who's the F&P scientist, our Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, Mike Morin of the Haunted Crew of Canada, myself, Corey Reese, and your host, Forest Moon Paranormal Zone, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, good evening, Concrete and S4ians. How's everyone doing tonight? So we had Marcum's birthday, and it was a blast. For any local listening, of course, you're going to hear this about 2 or 3 weeks out, but we have an investigation in Darrington tomorrow, 2 o'clock. So, if you're listening live and you're local, we'll be at Fortson Mill. Then, May 25th, come check out the Forest Moon Paranormal booth at the Upriver Farmers Market over by the swap meet by Loggers Landing. And we'll be there all day, and then we have a wilderness survival class that we're teaching on the 26th, 2 o'clock. So tonight, we're actually going to be picking Marcum's brain. and hearing about his life story, how he got to be a scientist, and basically his perceptions of the paranormal as a scientist. So how's everyone doing tonight?
Doing just great, thanks. Glad to be here.
Wonderful.
I'll tell you, the
And we have,
birthday wishes are pouring in.
We actually have Mike Moore sitting in the studio live with us tonight, and that's his first. He's sitting here giggling, taking pictures, and listening to the echo. Mike, you're being spoken to.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, repeat what you said. It is not echoey. I walk outside.
Actually, tonight, we have, of the 6 of us, 4 of us are live in the studio.
Yeah, and the other 2 are dead on the other end of phones.
Not dead, merely circling the drain.
Oh,
yeah. Hey, I told y'all last week if I remembered this birthday, I didn't do it right, so that was the aim.
You're going strong.
Well, I'll tell you, you're getting more birthday wishes coming through here.
It's been a good one. It's probably been the best one I've ever had, just for sheer enjoyability and company I was with.
Oh, nice.
Talk about the Canadian chocolates.
Oh, my God. Mike Moran brought me down a bag full of different candy bars and snack foods that they have in Canada that we don't have here. And, oh, my God. Yeah.
He was in Canadian heaven.
I'm having them.
It still is.
Yeah, I was in Canadian chocolate heaven. They have a candy bar up there that's like a squirrel nut zipper, only it's chewy. You can actually eat it without jerking your teeth out of your gum. That thing was amazing. But I was a good little diabetic. I only ate a little of it.
Now I do got to ask what that one is that you're referring to.
And eat more.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And you could not have given it a better name.
All right, so Markham, go ahead and start and tell us a little bit about your life growing up.
Well, typical Midwestern blue-collar family. My dad worked his way up from being a setup man in a machine shop to, at one point in his career, at the end, he was a senior tooling engineer for a Rockwell factory. So I got my mechanical abilities from Dad. Mom was very, both of them are smart as hell, but, Mom was the academic, the teacher. So I got that from her. My grandmother said she'd never seen a child that encompassed so much of the good and bad in both parents, and that was me. But so I was always the educated blue collar guy. But the other blue collar guys, what the hell are you talking about? I kicked around for probably 10 years after I graduated high school. Did a stint in the Navy and just never could find my thing. And then I had a really vivid nightmare about being very old with gnarled hands, working the same power tool job that I was in. And I was enrolled in college that summer. I saved up, and you could, back then, it was achievable. A semester at a Tennessee Board of Regents college was, I think it was $1,500 for a full class load. So, I did it. But, I see what some of these kids are getting, with the debt they're accumulating. And, oh, God, I couldn't have done it. I would have never got my education at the prices they are now. But that's, that started me along. I got into college and realized my brain was still elastic enough to learn things. And it was it was bliss there for the first couple of semesters. I mean, it opened my eyes a lot. It expanded my brain and made me realize how much I didn't know. And that whole my college process was, that was a rebirth. Started out biology, chemistry, computer science triple major, and then found out there was this thing called the MedTech program, medical technology program, that pretty much encompassed all three things I was trying to do the hard way. So that's a career path. And I think it's been 22 years. I've been a medical technologist working in hospital laboratories. Do a lot of blood bank work. That's kind of a specialty of mine. Where you match, you got somebody bleeding out in the ER. I'm the guy that's going to make sure that the units you get don't kill you. Just, all phases, and working a lot of those late nights. I would listen to Art Bell. Back in the early, my early lab days, I worked at Vanderbilt. I listened to Art Bell all night. And the more I listened, the more I got attracted into the paranormal. So that's where it started. The whole paranormal thing started.
Excellent. I got to stop real quick and give a big shout out to Caden from the Death Stalkers Paranormal out of Mississippi. I just talked to Caden tonight, as a matter of fact. We're pulling the Death Stalkers into the FMP network and use them as a boots on ground resource. So welcome to S4, Caden. Good to have you here. So, Markham, let's back up for a minute. In how did your Navy time? So you weren't a scientist until after your Navy, correct?
Correct. I was, I read a lot of like Science Digest, science-y stuff, but no, I wasn't. I guess in a sense I was, but I wasn't a trained one yet.
So were you drawn to science as a child? I mean, is that what kind of pulled you into the science realm?
I see. Yeah, it just seemed to be natural for me. Things like heat expansion of metals, and there were just things that would pop out of my mouth in certain situations. My dad would think or say, "Well, how do you know that?" And just when it came to mechanical things, I was always adept, and the science behind how these things work, why these RPMs come out. It was just always a thing, I guess, running like a subroutine running in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna put you to the test here and shift gears for a second. But so, what would you tell any kids that, like you, were drawn to science? What would you encourage them to be doing?
I would say get very good at math. I mean, I struggled with mathematics, and a child, you have somebody whose mind can grasp mathematics. There is no limit to where they can go with that. I mean, any career path, if you can do math well, and I mean the higher order stuff like quadratic equations, if your brain works in that area, everything else unfolds. Because you want to study physics. Well, guess what physics is? Calculus. To study physics, you have to have calculus. Biochemistry. There's mathematics behind the physics of how a cell powers itself. So, math is at the core of everything we do as a scientist. So, yeah, first, you got to get to where you can tolerate and work with math, your tool. Then it just depends. Are you the kind, what kind of science are you interested in? Do you like to know how things work inside? So are you going to be a biologist and go into the cell or molecular? It's just devote yourself to learning and building a foundation. You're a scientist. You got to learn how, very good at reading because of the journal articles and stuff. You have to keep up with it. So, a good core will do that.
Excellent. Yeah, and good advice because I suck at math, but I'm doing Homeland Security. I don't have to do a whole lot of math, fortunately. And yeah, Trip. We're working on Preacher's headset now. You good?
I never lost contact. I could still hear.
You good? Yeah, it was just choppy. So, what was your job in the Navy again?
I was an interior communications electrician. I was the guy that made sure the sound power phones worked, and we had charge of the shipboard phone system, 2 different types of phone system, like a modern one and then old spark gap version. We also ran the Nimitz TV station. It was a different division, but I seamen, that was part of their duties. The ship had an intercom system that we kept running. It was pretty diverse. You had alarms. You had just a lot of basic electricity, electronic style gear to work on.
Outstanding. And what pulled you into? I know you already drawn to science before the Navy, but what pulled you into going to school as a scientist after the Navy?
Well, I was doing just dead end stuff. I was a power tool mechanic for a while. That's mostly what I did. I was an auto mechanic for a while. I just wasn't hitting my, I realized I was making a living, keeping a roof over my head, but I wasn't going anywhere. And I was inspired to, go to college. I figured that was going to be my only way out of these dead end jobs.
Makes sense to me. And you've been a scientist how long?
I've had my degree since '96. I've been practicing medical technologist since January 1st of '96. So it's been 21 years now?
Yeah.
Of just labs.
22.
Okay, let's shift gears again here and go paranormal. So, what drew you to the paranormal?
Okay, one kind of ties back to the Navy. I had incidents when I was younger of my, a ghost or something in the paranormal, but I never was really that interested. It was more of a fear thing. So when we were in dry dock on the Nimitz, we lived in a old refrigerator ship, and they'd rehabbed for bunks for everybody while our ship was in dry dock, and we couldn't live on it. And this boat in Vietnam War had taken refrigerated supplies over and brought dead bodies back. So it's sitting there on this running brackish saltwater river. Figure it was a highly active site, and we would just run around. We didn't have gear or anything like that. It was just guys that just run around the holds with flashlights, wanting to see if something would happen, go clang But that was my early ghost hunting days. Was on the USNS Darby on the Chesapeake River.
So, as a scientist and with your scientific mind, what was your explanation of ghosts back then?
Back then?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was the disembodied spirits of, dead humans. I never thought there might be flavors or there might be versions of a ghost. It was a one-size-fits-all idea what they were.
So did you have a scientific explanation for them then, or no?
I had a basic idea because of the electricity electronics work I did that I thought maybe they were getting power from the tide going in and out under that metal hull. That's about as scientific as it got back then.
Okay, and how has your view changed?
Oh, here again, when you get into this field, it's like for everything you learn, there's 15 questions that one answer gives you, and it's continuous. It's a continuous chain. The more you dig into it, the more questions you're going to have. You're not going to find answers in this field, not scientifically. It's never ending.
Which makes it so much more
and how many times has your mind been blown? Oh, go ahead, Keith.
I said, which makes it so much more entertaining, where especially from a scientific standpoint, not getting answers.
Oh, so you got any questions for Markham, Keith?
Well, just really curious how, from a scientific standpoint, because we might just as well go there, but how you deal with that neat little other question going off-world as compared to the ghost side of it. How you look at the difference between the vibratory rates now as compared to what you used to look at it.
I want to clarify something real quick because we do have new listeners, and what we call off-worlders are aliens. Because I just want to clarify that because we have some people that are new in the show that are really intrigued and interested in the alien side of the paranormal. And so when Keith is referring to off-worlders, they are aliens.
Yeah, I guess we should clarify the other thing. The reason I call them off-worlders is because we have both people that are born off the planet and the ancient races, which are the ones that actually evolved here.
The ones that actually own the place, we're just visiting type?
Well,
right.
They got here before we did.
Huh. Well, okay, I don't know if I separate that. To me, it's all, for me, and I guess I got this from Cooper, the paranormal is anything that doesn't fit into your mundane 9-to-5 life. You know? And so if you see a UFO, that's paranormal. It's not normal to walk down the street and see UFOs. So, but we've all seen them. I mean, most of us have seen at least one. I don't really have to separate them. The scientist in me thinks that the more we're going to learn, the more we take our science, the more we're going to be able to explain what we're seeing in the paranormal. And it's going to become, okay, that's quantifiable now. We can stick our little pin in it, put it in the display and say, X and Y cause Z. So this phenomenon will no longer be paranormal. It'll be whatever catchy physics name they give it.
And that makes sense to me.
Because I don't have a separate side. I mean, it's all the Bigfoot, the ghosts, all that stuff it's all one world to me.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating.
Right.
Listening.
Yeah, I want to clarify real quick because Caden's new to S4, Caden's new to FMP, but yeah, if you have questions, Caden, by all means, type them up in caps, and Corey's watching the chat room. My laptop's back at the house, so I'm not even in the chat room right now, technically speaking. So by all means, you got questions. I know you're really interested in the UFO alien side of things, so ask away. Our Keith is a regular on the show. Markham is a regular on the show. Corey and I and Michael, we have a regular panel on every show we do. So we talk aliens all the time, like I told you. So, did you believe in UFOs and aliens when you were experiencing spirits, Markham, or is the UFO alien side of the paranormal actually new to you?
No, my family one night watched a UFO in Michigan for several hours. It was this big, shiny, bright object up in the sky, and we watched it do just sort of waver around in a tight little formation. And we finally, it was like, okay, well, we've seen a UFO. Let's go uptown and eat. We'll finish what we started. But, I had no doubt. My dad would show me the stars at night and say, explain the whole thing about how some of them had gone out because they were, because of the speed of light. These things have been traveling from the distance so far. He gave me the basics on relativity. And I would just look up and it's like, we can't be the only ones up there. And he said, no, we're not the only ones up there. So whether they were coming here or not was a debate that I've had with him. But
yeah, how'd that debate turn out for you?
Well, we've agreed to disagree, especially after I got my implant in my nose. But no, he can't see past Newtonian physics. He doesn't. It's the speed of light. It's not just a good idea. It's the law. You can't go past the speed of light. Well, that's in this dimension. That doesn't necessarily say there's not a way around that. There's probably a cosmic loophole we haven't discovered yet. Dad's not willing to admit that there's a way to get here to there. So he knows the universe is full of life, but he figures that the relativity thing was built in so that you couldn't get Klingons invading Earth because the distances were too great.
And so you saw the UFOs, but have you ever heard of alien abduction?
Not that much. It was back then in the 70s, that was a super fringe topic. I mean, I think I was probably in my late 20s before I had ever even heard about the Benny and Barney Hill thing. I had a friend in the Navy who was one of these unfunctional geniuses, and he was the one that first started talking about, these crazy ET abductions and Betty and Barney Hill and the Zeta, and I was like, what? Who? What? Who are you, and what are you talking about with this little guy? And his name was Scott Justice, and if you weren't educated or on his level, what he was saying sounded like gobbledygook. And then would have some education or learn something about physics. Like, holy crap, this guy. He knew something.
Exactly. So, Caden says, our belief at DSP, which is Destructors, is spirits and ghosts are simply energy. What are your thoughts on the UFO side? I've never seen or done true research. How do you perceive them as looking?
Well, for me, I think they're craft. I just think that UFOs. Well, most of what we see as UFO is some kind of craft, mechanical. Some kind of substance made out of some kind of substance. I don't think there's a spiritual aspect like some people do. I think they're just nuts and bolts machines for scooting around the universe.
and yeah, we're gonna open Caden's eyes a whole lot in this show, and with what SMP does as far as what crafts are. So yeah, let's see. Question for Keith: did humans come from somewhere else other than Earth, and if so, where?
Well, they were built on Earth. They were actually built by the fairy folk after the planet, way after the planet was built. But they were built for war. Okay, now, the nice part is there are some humans that actually did leave Earth. They're actually over on Mobius now, which it's the other side of the sun in the same orbit as Earth.
And unseen. Now, could you? This is going to sound stupid because, but if there's an eclipse, how would that affect Mobius? And is there a way to see Mobius?
Well, you'll never see Mobius from here. The only way you're ever going to see Mobius is by getting off the planet so you can get around the other side of the sun.
What about satellites?
I don't think we've got any satellite. Well, no, because it's as near as I understand it, and Markham would be a little better at this one, but I don't think there is a satellite sitting on the other side. There might be, but not that I'm personally aware.
Well, if is this thing in a count? It's in an orbit around the sun that exactly duplicates ours.
Bingo.
So what we have to do is, so it shares our moon then, right? No, our moon. Never mind. That would be like a super grand conjunction. No, I would say we have to take a satellite of some kind and park it in place at a Lagrange point somewhere where it would be where it could it's station holding and sit and wait for that other Earth to come around the orbit. Because there's some point in time, if we're in a counter orbit, that that it is where we were.
Yes.
It's 180 degrees away from us at any given time. So if we park a satellite aimed at where we were and wait for this thing to come around, it doesn't seem like it would be that hard to do.
Well, the other option would be to figure out the 90-degree point at the midpoint between Earth and Mobius. The answer to the other part of the question is, of course, if we're having a solar eclipse here, well, I don't even know what it would be called. Because...
Yeah, I mean, if they don't have a moon like we do, if they're not exactly, and they don't have a moon, what...
Not that I've ever seen. Yeah.
So they've got a whole different ecosystem because they don't have a tidal. They don't have a tidal cycle like we do. The 28-day tide, the tide cycle, the moon cycle.
Yeah.
So we got a question. It says, so is Mobius another Earth? Not sure on the spelling, of course.
Well, the Mobius, Mobius actually doesn't have the O in it, but not exactly another Earth, but it is certainly inside the Earth tree, like inside the same, what's it called? Survivable belt.
The Goldilocks, the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, because it's in a dead match.
Well, it seems like if there was a will to prove that exists, it wouldn't be beyond our technology to do it. It just seems like there's no will that is considered such a fringe subject that nobody,
actually,
is going to spend a couple million to test it out.
Bad news. I stumbled across it on NASA's site. NASA already knows.
So, Michael, do you have any questions for Markham?
Well, Markham, first of all, we've got to ask, I don't know if you want to disclose, but which birthday is this for you?
Double nickels. 55. I'm a speed limit now.
Well, congratulations. That's a good one to have. You're old enough to know what to do and smart enough not to do everything,
Right. Sometimes it's like, I probably could stand up to that guy and take him down, but I'd feel just as bad as he did the next morning. So,
well, I have a question because I understand you had a heck of a road trip to get out here. And I'm
yeah.
wondering how your road trip went, and whether you might have even sighted anything along the way.
I thought I did, but it turned out to not to be anything in particular. I have to admit, driving through some of the prairie country at night was, your brain thinks of all the Shunkawarekan stories you've heard and all the Skinwalker stories you've heard, and it was a little creepy in parts. But other than that, it was a beautiful country to drive through. Montana is epic, and it goes on forever. Yeah, I was getting a little frustrated getting through Montana. That was the only part of the trip that was unenjoyable, because, like, good God, does this state never end? You don't feel like you're getting anywhere.
So how many miles did you actually drive?
Do what?
How many miles?
I haven't checked my trip odometer. It should have been well over 2,000, I think. Close to 3,000.
About 2,800.
Yeah, I know it was 40, almost 50 hours of driving. And I would tend to drive like 24 hours at a whack, stop, catch a nap at a Motel 6, and then take another 24-hour jump. So I made a pretty good time. I left, it was like 12:04, just after midnight, Monday into Tuesday. And I got there about middle of the day. It was about 6 o'clock Thursday. I got to Concrete.
Like 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah, so I made pretty good time across.
2,861 miles.
Yes. And 2,000 of those are just getting through Montana.
Well, Markham, I do have a follow-up question, because you mentioned that you served on the USS Nimitz. And, of course, the Nimitz is in the news recently, of course, with this tic-tac video gun footage from the F-18s and the slow disclosure that is going on from the government. They actually had the Navy pilots, I think, based on the Nimitz when they sighted these fast-moving UFOs. What's your opinion about that whole thing? Do you have any?
Well, I mean, we saw USOs back in the 80s. And
tell us about that.
You would just see this light, you'd sneak out on a catwalk at night and just to get away, just to get some fresh air, maybe smoke a cigarette, and you would see lights following us. And they would always say, oh, it's bioluminescence, or I think one of the lamest things somebody said, it was the lights of one of our submarine escorts. Yeah, okay. But so I don't doubt that F-18s could catch gun footage. They have gun cameras. I can't imagine. There's probably a lot better footage out there. I'm sure they've been compiling that for decades. I'm sure some of the F-14s I traveled with probably had seen things. We didn't hear, that kind of stuff didn't really spread around. As ship's company, if there was any UFO sighting kind of thing through a pilot, we would probably never have heard about it.
And like any military too, you see things like that. You kind of hold your breath whether you're going to report them or not.
Right. Well, the reason we wouldn't have heard anything, Air Wing and ship's company were actually two different beasts, so we didn't have the same channels really. The Air Wing people had the people on the ship that they had to work with, and we would cross paths on occasion, but our rumor mill and grapevine was not connected to theirs really.
And Joe's got a question for Markham. When you were on the Nimitz, when it went back in time right before Pearl Harbor?
I am not licensed. I cannot divulge it, or neither was I can neither confirm or deny that information.
Oh, yeah, I know. You know, when I was in the Army, when I first got into the UFO field in the early 90s, I just get looked at crazy by my commander what I was getting into. And then, of course, in Third Army in Atlanta, I got followed, I got phone tapped, things like that. So, yeah, you know, you got to be real careful being in the military, what kind of hobbies or what kind of research you do. So I can completely understand secrecy when it comes to those in the military. So you and I have been working together for 2 years this year, actually. We met on Spaced Out Radio as listeners, and both got pulled in by Dave. Did being on Spaced Out Radio, listening to the guests and, you know, whatnot, did that open your eyes a lot?
A lot. I did like a 180. I used to think a ghost team had no business having a psychic. And a lot of that was because my experience in a ghost club, the psychic was the chick that was sleeping with the leader of the group, whether she was a psychic or not. You know, and he wasn't going to say she's not a psychic, because hell, you know, duh. So, you know, that kind of stuff. I haven't got a chance to work with some real psychics, but I think if you have that treasure, that tool available to you as a group, you have a real, honest to God psychic. You're a fool not to operate with that person, because the technology, let's face it, you know, there's no proof that the stuff we take in there is really doing what we think we know what it's detecting. With a psychic, if you have somebody at a remote location who's exploring alongside you psychically, and they don't have communication with the team on the ground, and they start validating what the measurements or what, you know, the things that the team on the ground is seeing, that's, you know, that might not be strictly speaking scientific, but it's damn close, and it's good validation.
So I'm going to poke you with a pointy stick now, in Joe's honor, and ask you, what do you think of all these paranormal teams that are investigating in the name of science, but they have no scientists, they have no science backing, you know, other than their cute little EMF meter and their awesome little EVP, and they're doing it for science. So what do you think about that?
I laugh. I mean, it's, you know, it's not a scientific investigation. You're using toy. You know, I mean, it's a technological investigation because you're using technology. But as far as being scientific, it's not. They're not taking any data. They're going in there waving these meters around, assuming that these meters are, you know, pointing out to a ghost. And I've been on cases where what they were talking to was an old school router. You know, I see a guy sitting in the corner. Can you tell? His meter was pegged. It's like, can you tell me your name? It's like, dude, you're picking that thing up. Walk away from it a little bit and see what happens. You know, and nobody likes the scientist on the group because I poked my finger through all their saran wrap. They don't like that.
Yeah, but quite frankly, the only ones that don't like it are the ones that are not, that aren't doing it.
Right, the ones that aren't. Well, yeah, that's the thing with FMP. I mean, if they need they know they can call on me for something like that. You know, try and think of experimental data. I mean, we're all the time thinking of what kind of baseline data you should have before you go. You know, before, during, and after an investigation. It just occurred to me last week sometime that we should be taking a look at the meter attached to the house, see what, you know, what it's doing right now with the cooperation of the family. I would say even shut everything down you can that you don't absolutely have to have on, and let's, see what that baseline is. Let's call it the idle of the house. Do our investigation, see if that usage, that watts per hour, has slowed down, sped up. Just one more piece of data that we can add to our toolbox.
Exactly. Don's got a question about portals and whether they can be seen physically. And, the astral team sees them all the time. They can see them from the astral. That's without a doubt. Can you see them physically? It depends on the portal. And what determines whether you can or can't, I honestly can't answer that because I'm not sure what the determining factor is. Other than in some cases where portals are caused by crossing ley lines, things of that nature. What do they look like? Think of kind of like a heat wave, for example. Think of, the movie Predator, not really the digital pattern per se, but you look at your car when it's 120 degrees out and you see that wave of energy or that heat wave. That's what some portals look like. You will usually see it in maybe the corner of your ceiling. Closets are common for them, things of that nature. So they can be seen physically, but it is rare. Oh, so going into history for a minute, S4 has been around for, July will be our 2-year anniversary. And it started out as Area 51 Cafe, and we were on Blog Talk Radio, and then we switched to Spreaker. We got picked up by SOR, and I had Markham on S4 as a guest, and we had so much fun. I made him a permanent. It became S4 with E squared. And what was your favorite show that we did?
I think the Alien Races show, hands down, was one of my favorites. Because I had just gotten that same reference work you use. I had just gotten that as a PDF and from a mutual acquaintance of ours, and it was so fun to do that show with that new knowledge and trying to keep the different races straight. So yeah, I think that was my favorite.
Which one? We did 3 different ones?
Yeah, I mean that series. Yeah, we did. I think we ran that we went through that whole book, 96 races or whatever's in it. I can't keep numbers in my head anymore, but we did like a mini series based on that. So yeah, that was it.
And I would have to agree. I also remember the Illuminati show we did. We did a show on RH negative, which I know is one of your pet peeves. We tore that topic apart.
Yeah, that was probably my second favorite. That was the whole, because I'm A negative, so if this is all some kind of elitist reptilian thing, I want my slice of the pie now, damn it, with some like back payments. Y'all owe me. No, the RH negative show was a good one.
It was.
As a matter of fact, I think I sent you a copy of the American Association of Blood Banks manual so that you could actually see the genetics and why it's not a add-on to our species. It's an expression of a recessive gene. It's actually not a sign of highfalutin alien overlords. It's a sign of inbreeding.
Yep, and it's still in my library. So, Mike, you've been sitting here quietly. Do you have any questions for Markham?
I do. Back to the Navy days. I'm curious if you've had any paranormal encounters besides the one you just talked about on your ship or any time when you've been abroad.
I know a lot of the time I was abroad, I stayed on the ship a lot. There was some extenuating circumstances, but we heard things, guys would go on shore leave and say, oh, this hotel in Naples is haunted as hell, stuff like that. I didn't really have any kind of experience that I would call paranormal while I was traveling around there. Most of my stuff has been, as far as things that got me off the fence with the paranormal, have been here in the States. We had superstitions on the Nimitz. There was a couple little statues, a frog who was called the Lode Toad, and there was this little fisherman. I think his name was George. Just these little crudely carved. Well, the tradition was you don't move them, because one time a guy came down, it was a commander of the watch, and he ordered that those be removed. They were not appropriate. And when they did, the Nimitz lost power. The central load dropped. Now, this is the story. I was not on. I can't verify this, but I will tell you there was a standing order that those statues were not to be removed. And that I could verify, because the Lode Toad and Frank, I think it was, Lode Toad and Frank stayed on top of that control panel the whole time I was on the ship. And we went through dry dock, and I went back. And those two statues, even after going through dry dock, were back on top of that control console. So there might have been something to that story.
Lesson learned, don't screw with superstition. Next question for me would be North Carolina. Have you investigated or done any of the Civil War battle sites? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but not in detail.
No, I haven't. I really want to. I need to get out there with our listener, Trippin' Fool. He lives near some of those and will be a great guide. It's just been a matter of time and being able to break away from responsibilities when I'm not at work to be able to enjoy something like that. One of the things that's overlooked in North Carolina, everybody remembers that we were part of the Civil War. A lot of people don't realize that we were very much a part of the Revolutionary War. Cornwallis marched his troops through North Carolina a lot, and they're still finding, relics from, he wouldn't march them very far. So there was a lot of campsites along his marching trails that, relics are left behind in, and there's probably some residual energy there.
Summer 2019 is my goal to head out your way and do Civil War sites to investigate. That's on the list.
I've been to Gettysburg when I was younger, and of course I was probably 15, 16, if that. And they say the whole area has changed a great deal, and I've wondered if we could get some of the investigators that were, exploring the battlefield 20, 30 years ago before it got so urbanized around there, and compare what they're getting now. With the new conditions, the population increased, have things gone up or have they gone down as far as activity?
I have a cool short ghost story about Gettysburg from my uncle. My uncle, retired naval, he would have been a chief petty officer, first class in the Canadian Navy. Once he retired from that, he became a long-haul truck driver, to where he would drive down basically the east coast of the States from Nova Scotia. And he was going through Gettysburg, and this was at nighttime, he went to go use a rest stop, and he saw a Confederate soldier all injured and bloody walk towards the washroom, go in the door, and then just vanish. That's something I'd like to experience.
That has made the hair on my head prickle. That's a good one.
He tells that story all the time. That's his go-to. And he gets all scared and weirded out when he tells the story, because he swore it was a real-life person, but watching it vanish, he was mind-blown.
Yeah, because it is not uncommon to see reenactors in that area. So if I saw him at first, I would be like, yeah, that's a real dude. The vanishing would be the part that it's like, what?
Yeah, he said like it had what appeared to be like fatal wounds in the stomach and chest area. Like, how are you walking, dude? And then just poof.
In a way that sends a chill, because there's somebody, if that's, hopefully that's just a residual energy, but if it's interacting with the door to the restroom, that would make me think there's at least some consciousness there. And that's just creepy to me, that somebody's locked in that agony, that moment of agony, and can't get past it.
All right, so we're getting to the top of the hour, time for our break. And when we come back, we are going to carry on our conversation with Markham and talk more paranormal and science. So, Corey, go ahead and take us into the break.
Okay. Yeah, when we come back, as you said, we are going to continue talking to Eric Markham about his experiences through life and what brought him into the paranormal and into science. Tonight on our panel, we have the birthday boy, Eric Markham. We also have R. Keith Andrews, astrologist and alien specialist, Michael Hall of UFO I-Team, Mike Morin of the Haunted Crew of Canada, myself, Corey Reese, and Eric Cooper of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And for you local listeners, you can catch our shows now on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial on Saturdays from 10 p.m. till midnight. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Monday through Friday, Spaced Out Weekend with Joe Roop Saturdays, and the Best of SOR on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or spacedoutradio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit spacedoutradio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, here. For those of you who just joined us this evening, we are having a birthday special tonight for Eric Marcum. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Marcum, R. Keith Andrews, Michael Hall, and Mike Morin. Everybody, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Happy birthday again.
Well, thank you for sharing my birthday. Yes. I mean, officially it was Friday, but we put it off till Saturday so everybody could join us and they wouldn't be working and all that. So it was well worth waiting an extra day.
Well, and what was great is you actually got to meet most of the FMP team, other than the ones that were outside, other states and whatnot, and a couple like Michael that couldn't make it up today. But I know that was exciting for Markham to be able to put faces to names, and now he knows the team a whole hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I've got to spend the better part of a day for everybody, and it's been a very just positive experience.
And then, of course, we got boots on ground investigation tomorrow to wrap it up, and then go do some shooting on Monday, and he's on his way back home.
So who are you going? Oh wait a minute, I shouldn't ask that, should I?
Yeah, no, we're just doing some target shooting, get our weapons sighted in and whatnot. So, Markham, let's see. What was the most eye-opening experience when it came to crossing scientific and paranormal lines?
The one that made me realize that there's got to be something to this was a disembodied voice that spoke to me in my aunt's house in Providence, Rhode Island, or West Warwick. Anyhow, the Providence, Rhode Island area. I looked for every conceivable, even far out, rational expression for how this happened. And there wasn't one. I mean, there was no evidence. There was no speakers. There was nobody pranking me. So at that point, it's like, I know this happened. And, this isn't in the science, this isn't in my textbooks. This actually happened, and there's a phenomenon going on here. So that was pretty much what got me really interested in things. It didn't hurt that we had a kind of malevolently haunted house we were living in at the time, too.
And what you're going to the story about your first astral team experience.
Oh, yeah. I have a cat that's glued to me. I mean, if I'm laying down, this cat is on me. If I'm sitting down, this cat is on me. Okay, I painted the picture. One day I was sitting there reading in bed, and this cat got up on his hind legs, looked at the closet, and then tore out of that room like he was under attack. And, me being me, I'm like, what the hell's in this closet, And there was nothing. And a little late, and it wasn't too much later, I'd made like an offhand comment to Eric Cooper about it. Maybe a week had gone by. This is before Coop and I worked a lot together. And, I made an offhand comment through Facebook, I believe, and I get a call, and next thing I know, well, I'll have the astral team look in. Okay, and at this point, I'm like, okay, he obviously believes in what he's telling me, but I was kind of like, okay, we'll let them play their game. I get a call from a young man on the astral team, and he starts describing a home, which there is no way he would know what the inside of my home is. Nobody on it with Fourth Moon Paranormal has ever been inside my home. And this kid starts explaining what he saw, where the portal was. And, at that moment, it's like, okay, you've got no choice but to believe. And I mean, I went on Google looking for internal pictures of my house, and there's nothing out there. I could not find anything out there describe, where somebody could do a 360 inside my house and get an idea. No. So there was legitimately somebody in the astral looking at my home and doing their job, and I have to say, it's been clear since. So, what at that point you've got to say there's more. There's more. We don't understand the science behind it, so it's called metaphysical or paranormal. But I mean, it's whether we have a palatable title for it or name for it. It exists.
All right. And the reason I ask that is because we get called the woo woo group and the team that we're basically a fringe team in that a lot of people don't believe in astral, they don't believe in what we do, but we have a client base that can back it up and verify it.
Yeah, absolutely, folks. I mean, I'm not saying that this was before I was really even connected with S4 or Fourth Moon Paranormal. At this point, my relationship was very peripheral. We knew who each other was, probably because of Spaced Out Radio.
Right.
And the only thing I can tell you is when you get that chill that goes up your back and you feel your hair prickle was the feeling I got when a total stranger was describing the inside of my home. Later, is he the one that was actually, if he's in his physical body, he's blind? Was that him? Out of Ohio.
No, that was Tony.
Okay. Because there was a couple times a crew went, but having your home described by a stranger who has no way of knowing what your home describes, that will get you off the fence. Skeptic hell. That was the cure. That was the cure for skepticism.
So, what do you see in science? Let's see, moving forward in the next 5 years.
I think we're going to probably see faster. I think we're going to see quantum computing. Right now, they've got it, but it's not, the cascade's failing. It doesn't do what they're wanting it to be fully functional. But I think they're going to lick that in the next 5 years. We're going to see quantum computing. Oh, I think disclosure may be coming. In medical science, I think we're going to start seeing limb and organ regeneration becoming more than just a pipe dream. I mean, the research on that's been going back, oh my God, Dr. Joey Barnett at Vanderbilt had figured out a lot of what the growth factors to make certain, the germinal layers of an embryo turn in, or embryonic tissue turn into the different organs. So he had that probably in 92, 93. Okay, flash forward 20 years, we have got to be getting close. They do a lot of research in the Triad area where I live, and I think that's going to happen. I think it's probably going to be military application first, replacing, wounded warriors, doing something with their limbs, because that's what they're working for, is limb regeneration and organ. I'm hoping that we might see cloned organs in the next 5 years. If you need a kidney or you need a liver, they, grow your own from your own body.
So let's step outside the box for a minute. What do you think in science we're already doing?
I think we're real close. I think we're already doing some of the growing organs. That, to me, I just don't see how we can not be doing that. I'm sure that some of our aircraft would be considered somewhat unconventional from a science. I think we know a lot more than just aerodynamics and combustion engines. I think there's got to be a gravitic drive out there, or something. If it's not a gravitic drive, it's somehow it's canceling out. It's canceling out inertia and gravity.
So, as a scientist, where do you think the paranormal is going to go?
I think what's going to happen inevitably, as our instruments and our research techniques grow better, and our validation of these phenomena is better, the paranormal is going to shrink, because as you solve it, it's no longer paranormal. So it's going to be, if we do our jobs right, we're basically going to put ourselves out of work. I mean, there's going to be the crisis teams, but I mean, it might be, like they have electronic pest repellent. Now you can click the button and the mice run away from the sound. Well, once we know what allows some of these entities to get here, I'm sure there'll be some kind of push button, ghost away. So it's going to be, I almost feel like it's going to become a mundane part of our world, and that's going to take some of the magic out of it.
I don't think you got to worry about that there, Preach.
I hope not.
A lot of the stuff will be explained, but you got to remember the rabbit hole. The moment you explain it, it's going to ask more questions than what you'll ever get the answers to.
I mean, that's when it's done right. Every answer gives you 1,000 questions to ask of the next, to find answers to. I just think a ghost is this. If we can say, oh, that ghost is caused by blah blah blah, and it's always that, and it's mundane. It's like, well, can you just get rid of it, or it's just. I think it's going to make it casual, if that's the word.
And I'm just going to add to that, if you're into, just your picture and your EVP, yeah, that's going to take some of that away. But when it comes to the emergency response side, which is what we do, we have job security. It's like there's always going to be the emergency response side to the paranormal, and we'll never be out of work when it comes to that part of it.
Yeah, and I know from, let's face it, from my field, there are so many doors to go through that when you take a look at that.
My viewpoint was a little narrow there because I was considering only ghosts in my answer. But yeah, when you throw in the cryptids and you throw in the UFOs, I'm just saying that with spirits, the paranormal, the work we do with spirits, I think that's going to become more mundane. Well, Grandma's haunting us because the electric dryer cycles at 60 cycles, but our power is dirty and it's actually at 58 cycles, and that's what there's going to be some clinically cold, dry answer for why Grandma's haunting, and that's going to take some of the mystery out of the world.
Yeah, well, fortunately, it'll open up the other side.
So, Markham, man, just to clarify for Caden, Markham and Preacher are the same person. Preacher is his nickname. But Markham, Caden wants to know, what do you believe is life after death?
That's something that until recently I wasn't really that sure of, and I'm not saying I'm sure now, but I have a feeling it's more of as we move out of this life, I think it's a matter of we're probably going to step right into another. Because at this given moment, there's an infinite number of me's doing, an infinite, I just took a step to the left, so there's an infinite amount that did left and an infinite amount that did right, and I just wonder if we don't just migrate into that life.
Well,
and if it's not a reincarnation thing, and it's a matter of, okay, you go around once, you die. Well, if the universe is infinite, there is no choice but that you're going to get recycled. If you're in oblivion for 20 trillions of years, it all starts over again. Infinite combination, it's the odds are you're gonna have to come back through. So either way, I don't think death is an end.
No, but it's a riot on the transition.
That seems, it's like the long fall isn't the problem; it's a sudden stop at the bottom.
It depends on the transition.
I've been over there often enough.
Well, some spirits like to go haunt the bakery. They don't want to pass over, so they go haunt the bakery. So they don't have the transition until they start to get back in line.
That much is true. And some people, it happens so fast they can't get over because they miss the doorway and don't know where it is.
Right.
I think that happens in the hospital setting a lot because you die suddenly. Okay, you were a crisis patient at that moment. All the nurses and all the doctors in that given field they had their attention on you. You pass. You're no longer an issue. It's the next person whose heart just stopped in the next room is now the important person. So you've got the spirit who doesn't realize, I don't know if it's they don't see the body or, it's just all of a sudden they're standing in this hospital hallway and nobody will listen to them. They just went from being the center of attention to they can't even get a yes or no or an acknowledgement of their existence. And I think we get a lot of that in the hospitals.
You do.
Well, look at Sixth Sense, for example. I know it's a movie, But, Bruce Willis didn't know he was dead the whole time. It's kind of the same concept.
I think he did. I think I watched that movie again, and I looked at it for tells, and that character knew he was dead, but he knew he could help that boy. And it was sort of a mutual thing. The boy helped him, go beyond, okay, you helped me. That's what you were supposed to do. Take your rest. Go, complete your journey. And I think it was, the kid was then, okay, this is your life. This is going to happen forever now. Deal with it.
Yeah, things are entertaining that way. I tell you, from a scientific standpoint, because I know what goes on from the physical standpoint when you pass away in the hospital. Been there, done that. That was trippy. But I would love it if you guys could figure out how to get a team into a hospital to get some actual solid readings. Good luck with that, by the way.
That is a problem. Yes, that's a problem because especially in this country we have a thing called HIPAA, which was originally supposed to be a way to, take your insurance with you. It was supposed to be an affordable way to take your insurance from job to job or if you were in between jobs. And it became this incredibly convoluted thou shalt not, some of us call it the 1,000 commandments. And I'm not saying their hearts were in the right place, but they've got such ridiculous restrictions on hospital access that a team would never get a chance to do something like that.
Well,
all you could do is maybe get an open-minded surgeon who did heart surgeries and they did this somewhere. They put a target on a cabinet. They had something that could only be seen from above, and they never told the patients about it. Or they might even gone so far as to change what it was from time to time. And these, the ones that died on the operating table, which is not uncommon during that procedure, had out-of-body experiences when their body was dead and saw that target. And they would lay in, they're conscious of everything that was said while they were dead. The reactions was seen from above. So that it's anecdotal evidence, but enough of that type of story have come down that you got to admit that there must be something there. And that is a pretty decent little crude experiment, putting something up there. I mean, it's not that, you can't rule out the fact that some OR nurse says, oh, by the way, if they ask you afterwards, it's a square. You can't rule that out. But, there's something there.
But because having been down that road from from just the experiential side, the whole death thing is it's a little overrated, but it's entertaining. But from a scientific standpoint, it'd be just a riot, even if you could get somebody outside the hospital, like on the grounds. And I don't know if you could even do that. That's your department, your guys' department to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing to do would be actually, I think what I would do just surreptitiously, if I had a psychic that I trusted, or a psychic medium, whatever you want, if I had one that I thought was legit, I would have them follow me through the hospital on occasion just to see, go trolling. I could always say, oh, this is a phlebotomy candidate we're showing, and just stroll through and see what they picked up, and maybe might be able to pass things on. I hope eventually that in my field, that the idea that there are spirits that linger catches on, and they actually go through and clean house every once in a while. Try and get these people, at least let them know they're dead, and that if they have business to it, if they have to do something, some kind of liaison, some kind of way of just letting them move on from there. I think that would be. I'd like to see that evolve in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, that would be nice. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that get lost in the halls.
Well, I've had them follow me in the halls.
Yeah, well, especially when you find, we have clients' homes or client locations that, it turns out there were morgues at one point in this, the same thing. It's all energy. Energy is energy, whether it's a spirit, whether it's a malevolent entity, that kind of thing. I want to clarify too that patients in the hospital is a quick death, and oftentimes they don't know they've passed on. But same thing with murder victims, same thing with violent accidents, car wrecks, things of that nature. If it's a quick death, your body dies so fast that the soul or the energy doesn't know it's passed on. And we always use the movie The Others as a perfect example of that. I know Mike's sitting here biting at the bit because he's got a question for Keith.
Fire away.
I've heard you say a couple times about you've had an out-of-body experience. I would just like to know the story about it.
Oh, which one? It quite literally, the first one I had was the day I was born. When I was born, I was actually born mottled green and black, and Mom and Dad quite physically recoiled from what they saw. So I got rushed off to the incubator. Basically, in a nutshell, you got to understand, people that say birth is a wonderful experience don't remember theirs. So when I was in the incubator, and trust me, this is the Reader's Digest version, I decided I'd had enough. I'd already had enough abuse on this planet, so I was going home. Do not astral travel when you're in ICU. They get really edgy when you're hooked up, and you just leave. And when I took off, that was when I first ran into the Council of 12, and they literally stopped me and went, "Where are you going?" I says, "I'm going home." And they went, "No, you've got a job to do. You signed a contract." I says, "I didn't sign up for this abuse." But I'll tell you, I was gone long enough for them to get agitated, and I don't know if this is normal. Markham, you may know more than that on this one. But they ended up using defib on me to bring me back. And I'll tell you, when you're in astral and you get hit with the defib, it's like getting electrocuted. But because when that happened, the first thing I ran into was a whole whack of people that were still wandering around the hall. It's amazing how many people are still there, because the moment you step out, there's crowds, a lot more than there are physical people.
Well, I'm wondering if, I don't know, that's making my brain go in too many different directions to be articulate on that. I can see where the jolt would bring you back. I mean, I never thought about using paddles on an infant. I mean, I remember, they told us how to do CPR on an infant, so I would assume that, we have baby-size paddles.
Well, I mean,
like when
it was a military base, so you figure it out.
Yeah, they may have. Military base, they may have just used a 12-volt battery instead of jumper cables on you, whatever was handy. Coop knows that. Coop knows that's true.
Yeah. That's why I'm laughing. Yeah, 9 volts and wires.
Yes, this job requires a delicate screwdriver. Go fetch me that hammer. We don't have the delicate screwdriver.
Hey, pull the Humvee over here. We got to get the jumper cables out. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Michael, you've been quiet over there in Seattle. You got any questions for Markham?
I'm just fascinated to hear from a scientist some of his paranormal experiences. I mean, this is just fascinating to me. that a person of his stature can give some testimony regarding the paranormal. So I'm really enjoying just listening here, kind of like sitting by the old campfire and roasting my marshmallows while I listen.
We did that literally earlier. We had a bonfire and sat around and just BS'd. And you bring up an interesting. You just jogged my brain here, but Markham, why aren't there more scientists in the paranormal?
Because we're basically told from the beginning, it goes back to even childhood. Oh, there's no such thing as ghosts in most households. I was unique, I guess, in that my grandmother spoke openly about spirits. But it's just not, like a friend of mine put it, he says, I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in Newton's first law of thermodynamics. And, it's just a nuts and bolts approach to life. And face it, the paranormal, it's not reproducible. It's not predictable. It's so random that it doesn't, you have to use your imagination to apply the scientific method to it. And I just don't think there's enough open-minded. They've been trained to be so nuts and bolts that there is no piece of their brain that's going to be willing to even admit that this happens.
Yeah,
and that makes total sense.
I think some of them are afraid to be laughed out of their professions. I think some of them just are in denial because, hey, I had the choice of looking at, am I, bat crap crazy, or did this voice really speak to me? And, I wasn't feeling bat crap crazy, so I had to, that left the other alternative.
Well, as you're asking, you're not.
Yeah, if you're asking, you're not.
And that's what just frustrates me the most, I think, is we're a non-scientific team or an emergency management team, but we happen to have two scientists. We have Markham and we have Karen, who's an atmospheric meteorological scientist.
Oh, nice.
So we have both sides of science. And so anytime, like tonight with Caden, we have scientists, we have a psychiatrist, we have a lawyer, Michael's a lawyer, but, it's frustrating seeing these other teams going, oh yeah, we do it for science. No, you don't. And here we are, we have two scientists on our team, but we're not here for science. We're here for the client. So Joe's got a question. As a scientist, describe your experience in the Holbrook Hotel.
I know who's asking that. That's it. As a scientist, I cannot explain my experience at the Holbrook Hotel. I mean, that was a purely non-scientific experience. I mean, I say I did not see a ghost, but if I say I perceived one, it's like the only thing that was missing was the actual visual picture of this person sitting in a chair down by the men's room in the Holbrook. And then we were walking, we decided to look around the Holbrook. And I got down this hall, looked down this hall, and I did not want to go down it any further. And this was the first time in this life I've ever been to the Holbrook Hotel. So it's not like I had a bad memory, but it's, overall psychic impression was I was killed in that hallway in a past life and robbed. Now, there's no scientific way I'm ever going to be able to prove this. But I will say that as a flesh and blood experience, I'm not altogether sure I need a scientific explanation for it.
Yeah, there is that to be said. The way it was put.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's a skeptic until they have their own experience, and then you're not a skeptic anymore. It goes straight to, how did that happen? How do I prove that? But yeah, I have as a scientist, I cannot explain that whole experience at the Holbrook.
So that brings up an interesting point. You get the skeptics because, well, one, frankly, they've never had a paranormal experience. Why is it that some people have that one or two experiences, others have, multiple lifetimes of experiences, but you have the random people out there that have never had a paranormal experience?
I don't know if anybody hasn't. I think when you consider what causes perception and what the signals come, the filters that come through our brains, the way information is processed, I think everybody has had a paranormal experience. They might not have perceived it as such. They could have passed, for all we know, they've passed a dozen ghosts every morning on the way to work. So I think it's a matter of being open to it. It has to be part of your mental vocabulary so that you can, experience it or be conscious of the fact that you are experiencing it.
I've had hundreds of ghost encounters, paranormal encounters, spirits, all that fun stuff, but I have never, ever to this date experienced extraterrestrial alien stuff, and I'm completely open to it. Why can't I?
Consider yourself lucky.
No. In some cases, yeah. My own experience so far with the Sasazians, I don't even know how that word is spelled, R. Keith Andrews. Somebody was asking me about that today, and it's like, I have no idea. But so far, my experiences, which to my knowledge started Easter Sunday this year, have been benign. I mean, yes, they caused me some physical damage, broke a bone in my nose, but they managed to heal it they managed to heal it in 2 or 3, I think it was 3 days, and you couldn't tell. By the following weekend, there was absolutely no evidence of that broken bone whatsoever.
It's not surprising you broke your bone.
Well, and there's been many cases, using Travis Walton, for example. Travis Walton was never meant to die. When the tractor beam went down, they killed him. They pulled him up. They resuscitated him, basically fixed him, and returned him. And, there's been several not clients of ours, but there's been several cases where, abductees have been taken, cancer has been healed. It depends on the race, but some have traumatic experiences, agreed. Some humans are damaged, but there's been many cases where people have been healed, or when damage has been done, they've been retaken and repaired. So again, it goes back to race. It goes back to what their agenda was, what they've, what the purpose of the abductee was. But you've got abductees that are taken 2 to 3 times a week versus some that are only taken maybe once in their life. So it does vary.
Well, I think with mine, I've just got the implant, and I've gotten a doubt. This is new to me, okay? I get a little bit of tinnitus in one ear, like there's a signal coming through. But the other day, this thing, I was hearing it without the sound coming through my ears. If that, it was resonating inside my head, and it was like it was like I don't know how to explain it other than I was perceiving it as a data packet. like a transmission of like a burst of some kind of information. Like a download of some kind.
Did you manage to piece together any of what it was?
No, it was just this weird mechanical noise in my head. If that makes sense. It wasn't.
To me, it makes total sense.
I don't know if they're testing this. I don't know if they're testing the circuit or what, but it was just like kind of like a fax machine on acid. with a hand cranked tabulator machine thrown into the background.
That paints such a bizarre picture, you know.
Real quick, Caden's got a question. So there's a preferred race, and I'm going to interject here, and then I'll let Keith jump on that, because maybe Keith got a preferred race. But I would say if there was a preferred race, it's not a preferred race per se, but it would be the consortium. And that's, a group of multiple races that overlook the planet. And, of course, humans being on the planet to an extent. But would you say there's a preferred race, Keith?
Well, from the standpoint of how they treat people, definitely the Greys are the most clinical of the bunch. But I suspect the best race to be picked up by would frankly be the Pleiadians, because they're very neutral, but they are the backbone of, if you will, their medical teams. They're the ones that know the human body better than anybody, except from a hybridization standpoint.
And they're pretty much the race that watches over the human race the most, are they not?
Only from a health standpoint. The Thrazazians are actually allies that are working with many of the humans, many of the human peoples, in order to try and help bring things around. It's just they happen to be way too strong for, humans' comfort.
Yeah, apparently. I'm not sure that what happened to my nose had anything to do with mishandling, because I didn't have any other aches and pains in my body. I think it was just part of the process they had to break that bone to do whatever they wanted to do. And I imagine I don't know. I don't feel like I've been abused or, how dare them bastards go. I think deep down, I must have given them permission to do it. So far, my experience with the Thrazazians has been, it hasn't hurt me any. Aside from the broken nose. But the broken nose healed within, by the end of the week, you couldn't tell that I had a broken nose beyond what it already looks like. The swelling was gone. They used some kind of tissue repair technology on my bone that had it knit and pulled back in place within 2 days. No tenderness. I didn't even think about it till like a week later. Oh yeah, wait, last week this time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You're one of the few people that actually pronounces their name correctly.
Must be my affinity for reptiles, the wanting to hiss the name out.
But is there anything I could do to experience extraterrestrials? As the great Fox Mulder said, I want to believe.
I look up. I spend a lot of time looking up, and you'll see the craft. I see them probably every other time I go to my mom and dad's up in the mountains. They're in kind of dark sky country. I see things that make either instant 90 degree turns or mid-course corrections and just weird stuff all the time. Even my dad, who's a hardcore skeptic, loves to look through the telescope. So there's a lot of stuff moving up there.
Oh yeah, and the
Well,
thing is, you got to remember some of the things you see are more an issue of what you don't see. Like if you look up and you're watching sequences of stars disappear and reappear.
That's a cloak. Yes, a cloaked ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to bring Michael in here for a second. Michael, is it your team that has actually been able to call down craft?
Well, no, we haven't done that specifically. But I tell you what, it's kind of interesting. I mean, you're probably talking about Dr. Stephen Greer's group, the CE5 protocols that they have, where you I don't know the copyrighted term of their protocols, but it deals with music and lights and intention.
A lot of belief.
Yeah, a lot of belief. That kind of
and
thing.
And if you don't see them, you didn't vibrate up with the rest of the group.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't know if for our experience on the UFO I team, we almost any night of the week that we find clear skies, we can go out with our Skywatch gear, our stop action photography, our night vision videos, and you might not see something with your naked eye when you're looking out there, but the equipment we have is so powerful, and we've also got monitors, so you don't have to look through the eyepieces of these pieces of equipment. So the monitors make the screen size much bigger, and you can see a lot more things. But what happens is typically we'll go through the tapes afterwards and pick up stuff that we didn't see during the time we were recording. So it's just amazing to me how many things are up there, anomalous aerial activity in the night skies, or the day skies for that matter, that we pick up. I can't believe, like Markham says, that most people just don't look up or do it long enough. There is one other thing, Mike, that I've been trying myself, and I think I've heard this as being very helpful in the idea that we need to prepare our own minds for contact if we are looking for it. And I've been doing these Monroe Institute binaural beats for a period of time, where there's tones that you can listen to in headphones, and of course the one ear is about 4 hertz off, or different than the other ear, and it supposedly syncs up both sides of your brain. So that might be something to do to just even prepare ourselves for the idea that we want to be contacted or could be contacted.
And I'd be very careful with that too. You don't want to be contacted. You don't want to be contacted by some races.
No, you really don't. Being invited to dinner by some of them is just a really bad day.
No, especially when they're looking at you, sizing you up for the right pan.
I want them to knock on my door, make them obvious, have a coffee.
Yeah, trust me, you don't want that. You really don't want that.
No. Because again, they'll take you to dinner, and well, it's not for you to eat. Anyway.
Well, even interacting with an alien species is such that, the whole First Contact movie, throwing out his hand to shake. How do we know that that's not a rude gesture or communicating with a completely alien race? It's just, what do you find? What's your common ground? Are they so alien from us that there is no common ground?
Some of them, it's a royal pain getting to figure out how to communicate.
So we are coming down to the last 10 minutes of the show. It's been a quick show. I have one last question for Markham. For a team out there that does want to try to practice a little bit of science, what kind of gear do you recommend?
Mike Moore said a lab coat. Okay, we need to have I would say you should have 2 weather stations. One at a remote location nearby, one on site, so that you can see pressure changes, things that don't change over an area normally. Like right now, if I look at the barometric pressure, it's going to be like 32.9. If I walk out in the street 20 feet away from this house, it's going to be the same. I think we have to have devices and measurements that we can have a differential. There's got to be a difference between what the instruments, you got to be able to have the kind of instruments that log data or that you can record data with. And it's good to have 2 sets of whatever you're using so that you've got the ones that weren't on site but nearby, say in the parking lot, something to compare to. A lot of the stuff we use now is digital, and you can say, okay, I got this thermometer spike and I got a barometric pressure drop, and you can record your data and then compare it to the outside. You got to come up with something where you can have controls. You got to be able to say, well, this is 0 activity. This is where we were and we had activity. So take the old tried and true instruments. The barometer's been around since Galileo or before. These things that we understand the mechanism of how they work so well that if we get a reaction, we can quantify it. We can say, we had a pressure drop. Localized pressure drop. That's important. So weather recording devices, and then, the usual, I like analog recording devices for the tape noise, the hiss. I think that works better. Then just your usual, the meters everybody likes, the K2s, the Mel meters, anything that you can compile data with. And that's the only way it's really scientific. You've got to be taking your readings on site and comparing them to something that would be considered normal.
Excellent. And I fully agree. I also like the power meter idea that you came up with today.
You get partial credit for that, because I was after a conversation with you, something you said, and I think it was completely unrelated to the paranormal. I think it had more to do with your emergency management degree or your homeland security degree, made me think of electrical meters. But the light bulb went off over my head, so you get half credit for that one.
Look at the power meter in your client's home or business, see what the reading is, and see if there's a drop in power when you get done with the spirit or whatever the situation that you're handling is. And that validates that the paranormal is drawing power or pushing power, either way.
Yeah, one way to do that would just get the cooperation of the family and say, okay, we need to turn off every light that you don't need, turn the furnace off. You don't want anything, you want everything at an idle. You just want everything at a baseline idle, and you take that measurement. Then you do your investigation and watch that thing. If everything's idle, there's nothing cycling, like the refrigerator's unplugged, so it's not going to come on and draw power. If everything is like down to 2 light bulbs in the house, there's not going to be any power, but no draw spikes, or it's not going to drop down. And if it does, you can also get with the power company and say, was there a voltage drop or a current drop at this time? And they may be able to verify that. So that's a piece of gear that's not thought of as paranormal. But if we add that and the science behind it to our investigation, one more piece.
Exactly. Totally agree. So as we wrap up, Michael, where can folks listening find UFO IT?
Well, you can always check us out on Facebook at UFO IT with a lowercase I. And matter of fact, if they friend our page, they'll get notified whenever we go live streaming on our weekly meetings. We typically meet at Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You can come and join us live at Denny's in Linwood on 196th, or you can just check us out on the Facebook page. And, of course, as always, UFOIteam.com on the Internet.
Awesome. And, Mike, where can we find Haunted Ghosts of Canada?
Yeah. You can find us at Haunted Crew Canada on Instagram, and you can also find us on Facebook, Haunted Crew of Canada.
Awesome. You can always find, actually, a new update that we will be incorporating soon. Not sure exactly because my logistics specialist is going to add a Markham Science link on our website at www.forestmoonparanormal.spruce.com. So you will be able to find all of Markham's blogs and science talk straight from our website as well. So thank you guys. Been an awesome show. I know Markham's had an awesome birthday.
Yes, I have. And a big thank you to my family in Washington for making it possible. Thank you all very much. And my Canadian family. We claim you too, Mike.
We do.
And proud to do so.
And real quick, Keith, where can we find you on YouTube?
On YouTube at R. Keith Andrews. And you hit there, and it'll give you all the rest of the links.
Most awesome, most awesome. Corey, take us home.
Okay, I can do that here. I would like to thank our panel this evening. First off, the birthday boy, Mr. Eric Markham, our Forest Moon Paranormal Scientist. Our Keith Andrews, astrologer and alien specialist. Michael Hall of UFO I-Team. Mike Morin of the Haunted Crew of Canada. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we talk about disaster preparedness. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And now for you local listeners, KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial. I would like to thank all of our listeners because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.